What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into episode 197 of the CRW podcast, here to recap a West Virginia Mountaineer victory. And joining me to help me do that, as always, my co-host, Steven.
What's going on, everybody?
Steven, man, how the turntables turned from last week to this week. We were complaining, we were upset. West Virginia loses a lead, a 10-point lead with less than 5 minutes to go in the backyard brawl. And then we turn around this week and we come back from down 11 with less than 5 minutes to go in this game. Really just a big wave of emotions involved in this 32-28 win over Kansas. But at the end of it, West Virginia, of course, starts Big 12 play 1-0. That's the most important thing. But just kind of open this up. I guess take me through your range of emotions on Saturday from, the way that the first three quarters went, get the rain delay, then West Virginia comes back out. Kansas puts another one into the end zone, goes up 11. West Virginia's down by 11 with, I think it was 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. And then they really kick it into high gear. This team keeps fighting. They show their resiliency. They show who they are when their backs are against the wall, not only to come out and win the game, but to do it in the fashion that they did. So just kind of what was your range of emotions going throughout the day on Saturday, ultimately ending up in a Mountaineer win?
To be honest with you, well, first of all, I want to say it's massive, and I mean massive, that they were able to pull out the W, and show that kind of resiliency to do so. But for the most part of the game, there was still a lot of things that I seen that were glaring issues that were that I think are going to be negatives moving forward. But with that being said, I really do want to give them the credit that they deserve. But earlier on, I didn't, with the way that our defense was playing, I didn't know that we were really going to be able to have a shot late in that game. But Garrett Green did what Garrett Green does, and was able to pull that out for us.
Yeah, man, he's so good in winning time. We've talked about that a lot, how good he is in those 2-minute drills. You think of all last season, he did it a ton to end halves, to end games. And then this year comes back, does it again. He's one of the best 2-minute drill quarterbacks in all of college football, I think. And he really put the team on his back there to end the game for sure. Got to shout out Garrett Green for that performance. Saved the season, may have saved some people's jobs, and really kept West Virginia's goal of competing for a Big 12 title alive for now. And one thing that we talked about was this 5-game stretch to start Big 12 play was really going to tell a lot about this team, and may have been a little bit tumultuous throughout the game. I'm sure there were points we were both upset with the way things were going, but hey, through that 5-game stretch at the start of it, we're 1-0 at least, so that's what matters at the end of the day, I guess.
Yeah, huge difference between 1-3 and 2-2.
Yes.
Like we stated in the pregame show, this was an absolute must win, really for either squad, for the way that you think the rest of your season is going to go. Um, and I do want to give credit where it's due on our defense. I think that we've done a really good job of getting pressure on the quarterback in all of the games that we've played so far this season. I think where the issue lies is if we can actually tackle him once we get there,
Right.
and that's where it's really hurt us over the length of the last three games. But on Saturday, really seemed to do well at getting to Jalen Daniels, and then getting him down on the ground once we got to him. Uh, you know, Obviously the most memorable play, I guess, of the game for the defense will probably be the play from Tyron Bradley and stripping Jalen Daniels, and sealing the game for us. Um, but but yeah, that was impressive. T.J. Jackson once again showed that he was a dog, and that was not just a one hit wonder of a game. Uh, Sean Martin, I
True.
thought, had a very impressive game. Um,
Yeah, Sean Martin with the big tackle there on that 3 and out when we really needed it there on their 3rd and short. That was a big play.
yeah, absolutely huge, absolutely massive. Um, yeah, there was a lot of when I say negatives, I think our secondary definitely needs to continue switching things around and trying different things, because Jalen Daniels, we even mentioned, shouldn't have been able to pass so well against us and was still able to do so. But it's if we can compensate by actually getting the quarterback down once we get back there, like we did on Saturday, I think we may actually win a few more games in the Big 12. But hey, like I said,
Yeah.
10-2, 10-2 still alive.
That's right. That's right. Still a chance, man. And hey, the conference looks wide open. We're going to talk more about some of the results from this weekend towards the end part of the show here after we talk about this game a little bit and take a look at some stats. But definitely looks like the conference is wide open. And, for the defense, I will say they did leave a little bit still to be desired. They gave up a lot of rushing yards to Kansas. They said after the game that was kind of game plan based, just the way that they played things. They knew they would probably give up some rushing yards. But I do got to credit them for, at least trying some different things. As you mentioned there, you started Spells and Crandall at cornerback. They even changed up the way that they were kind of coaching things, I guess you can say, because Jordan Leslie went from being on the field to up in the press box. So maybe that'll help him, get a little bit better view of the all 22, have a whole view of the field. And there were times the defense looked improved, a little bit, really in the first half of the game. They hold Kansas to 7 points. Thought that was a good effort. Second half, a little bit, kind of more of what we've seen earlier in the season. But I guess if I'm going to credit them for anything, it's, making the adjustments that they needed to make, try and change some things up and do things differently. And, I guess it pays off when you get the win at the end of the day. And looking back to, the previous game, the defense didn't get to stop when we needed it at the end of the game, and this time they do. So, I mean, there's a little bit of improvement there, I guess, that you can point out if you're trying to be optimistic, but the defense
Yeah,
definitely still has
yeah.
to get a lot better, I think, moving forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't want to take anything away from, especially there towards the end of the game. They showed, like I said, a lot of resilience and a lot of heart. When a lot of people and a lot of naysayers, including ourselves, we weren't very positive on them. Well, I mean, I don't think we were quite as negative as a lot of people have been on them, in the pregame show. But still, we were not as optimistic as what we were in the preseason anyway. Um, and I thought it was a great job of the team to come out and show that kind of heart when you know, a lot of people in that situation might not have shown that much heart. And then also, um, I do want to credit the Mountaineer fan base.
Yeah.
All the things that you went through as a fan base as a whole, all the things posted on social media, all the comments and everything. To be quite honest with you, I didn't expect there to be half as many people as there were on Saturday. But I think they did. I think Mountaineer Nation did a great job of showing up and showing out. And they didn't quite fill up the stadium, but there weren't very many empty seats. So
Yeah,
I
there's
did
a
want to
lot
give
more
them that
people
shout
than
out.
I
I was
expected.
impressed. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
same.
definitely more than I expected for sure. So got to credit the fan base there for continuing to show up and support this team, and that's going to be big because we still have some big home games coming up here in Big 12 play. So hopefully the fan base continues to rally around this team because I think that's one thing that the team showed us is that even though everything was against them, the deck was stacked against them, their backs were against the wall in a must-win game. Not only going into the game, but then once you get into the game, get into that fourth quarter they really had their backs against the wall and they showed kind of the team that they potentially can be when they come back and win that game. So they're going to continue to fight in these games. We got to continue to, root for them as a fan base as well and rally behind them because it
Yep.
seems like they're always going to put their best effort forward. So, that's a big thing there for sure. So definitely shout out to the fan base for showing up. And then I think, when we talk about that resiliency, talk about having the backs against the wall, you also got to talk about the way that they battled through this game, despite the fact of injuries kind of piling up throughout this game, too. You go into the game, no Preston Fox, no Justin Robinson, no Reed Carrico on defense. Then during the game, you lose Josiah Trotter for, a brief period of time after he had a hot start in the first quarter. You lose Wyatt Milam for a series or two. You lose Aubrey Burks, unfortunately. Hopefully he's okay after that scary injury on the sideline. You lose
They
TJ
they
Crandall.
said he
So, I
was in the
mean,
locker room after the game with the team.
that's
Um,
positive, Sam. That's
that
positive.
that's that is positive that he's up and moving around on his own and everything. From the I don't know about from the way you thought about it, but from my perspective, I've never heard them stop play. I've never heard the announcer announce an injury on the sideline, and
Yeah,
they
me neither.
announced an administrative stoppage, is what they called it, for an injury on the sideline. And it was, I mean, I don't know, it's kind of a scene over there, um, with a lot of people, covering. like guarding him. You couldn't really tell what was going on for a while. I didn't really know that it was a player. I thought it might have been a coach or someone else on the sideline that may have gotten hurt. But for them to, I don't know, that's a scary situation. So, absolutely hope that Aubrey's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Especially, like there in the stadium when we were seeing it, where we're on the other side of the stadium versus the sideline that the team's on. All I saw was somebody leaving on a stretcher. Couldn't quite tell who it was, but luckily we were able to find out later. And then it immediately brought me back to last year when he had the scary injury against TCU, and I was wondering if it was lingering effects from that, or if he had redone something similar, because they were saying it was maybe a back. So glad to hear that he did make it back with the team, and so hopefully he'll be able to contribute moving forward, because we're going to need him, because that put us into a weird spot, because we already didn't have Preston Fox, which meant that Rodney Gallagher was playing on offense. So, typically throughout this season when Aubrey Burks hadn't been on the field, that would be Rodney Gallagher, coming in there. But where he wasn't, playing on defense in this game, then you had to shift things around. You had to move Aiden Garnes there to kind of play that nickel spot, kind of the spear spot there once Aubrey was gone, which changed the defense up a little bit. And I think that's another reason that Kansas was able to run the ball a little bit, because, Aubrey's a little bit more physical, but a little bit better in the run. Aiden Garnes not quite as big, not quite as physical. So it really changed up the way that you had to scheme things up, I think. Then moving forward, we saw, other guys play on the outside corner, Garnett Hollis, who got banged up for a second in this game as well. I think TJ Crandall never did return after he was injured on that punt play. So a lot of injuries piled up for West Virginia, but they still, had that next man up mentality and was able to, get the win despite all that. But hopefully, I think the bye week, coming up this week is coming at the perfect time for us to hopefully get a lot of these guys back before we get back into Big 12 play with a tough road contest there in Stillwater. So, that's the one silver lining, is that we do have a bye week now, and hopefully we can get a lot of these guys healthy.
yeah, couldn't have came at a better time. And kind of weird how it works, and ironic how it works. How not that we were the most healthy team moving into this game, but even after this game, especially
Yeah.
because I think you had like you just mentioned, you had a handful of injuries just from Saturday that you got to deal with going into this bye week that you hope don't really kind of linger past that. But like you said, you got a tough battle down in Stillwater after the bye week, and then it doesn't get much easier after that. I know Kansas State didn't look that impressive last night, but they still, that's still going to be a tough team to deal with moving forward as well. So,
Yeah. Still going to
and
be,
Cincinnati
two
as well.
straight
Cincinnati,
games.
Cincinnati might be no pushover moving forward down the line also. So the rest of this Big 12 schedule is really going to be um, a lot more games, just like you've seen them on Saturday. Very close games. I think one thing that you're really seeing that's really obvious in the game of college football right now is that um, more so this year than I can remember in recent years, anyway. That like these types of comebacks are going to be very popular moving forward, and I think that the reason being is that 2 minute warning plays a
Yeah.
lot of effect into that. Um, I was listening to Greg Hunter, and he was saying that you have the 2 minute warning, but different than the pros. You actually have the clock stoppage on every first down until they set the ball. Uh,
Yep.
so,
That's true.
so I think that with all of those factors in play, if it's in the realm of like a 15-point ball game, 16-point ball game, don't be shocked if you see a lot more of these moving forward throughout the entirety of college football, not just for West Virginia games.
Yeah, it's never over till it's over, and we here throughout Mountaineer Nation can certainly attest to that. In back-to-back weeks, it biting us once, and then us coming out on the winning side on the more positive end of it this week, which is great, because like you said, it was a must-win situation. So was glad to see that, and it probably will be more prevalent moving forward throughout college football. You've seen several comebacks in recent weeks already just to begin this season for sure. But, we've talked a little bit about the defense. Talk a little bit about the offense here, and then we'll get into some stats from the game. But offensively, I think obviously Hudson Clement, great game, may have established himself as that alpha receiver we've been talking about and been looking for. And it was really impressive that he did it against those Kansas corners, who, as we talked about in the preview show, both super highly rated in PFF coming into the game. And he was matched up a lot with Mello Dotson, who had one of the highest coverage grades, not only in the conference, but one of the highest coverage grades in the nation. And seemed like Hudson Clement was getting open every time, winning his one-on-one against Mello Dotson. So that's a great sign moving forward. The run game struggled a little bit, but I think that's really just Kansas having a good defensive front, keying on the run. They weren't going to let, Jaheim White and C.J. Donaldson beat them. So really it turned to Garrett Green, and his legs really did a lot of damage, especially late in the football game. But one thing I was super happy about offensively, Steven, was it looked a little bit more like the offense that we saw towards the end of last year at times. I think we were talking about that, just in the preview leading up to this game or the review of the last game, one or the other, how the offense seemed like they were just trying to do some things differently that they weren't really doing last year. And then in this game, we come out, we see a lot of those play action deep shots that we utilized a lot last year. We saw some designed runs for Garrett Green. We saw Garrett Green get out of the pocket and make plays with his legs scrambling, which he hadn't done a lot this year. So, overall, I was actually pleased with the way that the game was called by Neil Brown, that the offense that we put on the field, especially there in the late portion of the game when we talked about going into that 2-minute drill where we really thrive. But I think that overall the offense looked a little bit more like what I was expecting it to see coming into this year. And, if we can continue to score, 30 plus points, I think we're going to be in good shape to be in a lot of these close games that we're talking about, these one score games, and give ourselves a chance to win them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that's very obvious to me is that the offense looks a lot better when you allow Garrett Green to, like I said, be Garrett Green.
Yep.
At times this year we've talked about how they tried to make him a drop back passer. They go to the running games look good a lot more in previous games than it did on Saturday, in my opinion. I think that it could have looked a little bit better besides, what Gigi did. But to me, I think the offense just does better as a whole. It's a lot, you have, whenever Gigi's allowed to get out in open space and be the runner that he is, make defenders miss. I think that he showed that time and time again. That's what he adds and brings to this offense that makes it so dynamic and so explosive at times. That's not taking anything away from anybody else. Like I said, Jaheim and CJ, they're great in their own respect, but I don't know. I think whenever that is when Gigi's our leading rusher, that just seems like the common denominator on or not, maybe not the leading rusher, but the most explosive rusher.
Yeah.
I guess it should say. That just always seems to be the games that we're able to win, especially the games that end up like this. And throughout the stretch of the, like you talked about last season, whenever the offense seemed like it was, really finding itself and finding the chemistry down the stretch, that's what really will seem to be getting better to me was Gigi, finding himself and knowing when to run. It almost looked at times like he knew when he was going to run before the play was even called. And I don't mean that in a sense of like he decided before the play was, snapped. I just mean that in like his decision making just seemed to be like getting quicker and quicker throughout the season. And then
Yeah.
this
He
year,
wasn't going to be denied, especially on those
right.
last few drives. He was going to make the play, whatever it took.
And then this year, like they've just these first three games, you know, I think he hasn't really seemed like himself. And yesterday it really seemed like he was himself.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
That was one of the first times this season that I felt like that. That I felt like, okay, that's a little bit more of the GG we were expecting to see coming into this year. Just getting out there making plays, being a winner like he has been since he's really been the quarterback of this team. And that's something Neil Brown said. I saw the video of it afterwards because of course being at the game we didn't get to hear the TV broadcast, but when they interviewed him on the TV broadcast talking about Neil Brown after the game, and they asked him how were you able to pull this off in the late scenario of this game that you did, to pull off this win. His answer was, we have Garrett Green and they don't. And, that's kind
yeah,
of the team that we need to be to win games is just let Garrett be Garrett and let him go out there and make plays. And he'll get us some wins if we do that.
absolutely. And don't want this to mean, to in any way be a shot at Neil Brown, but, you obviously see that and you understand that. So, what is it that you've seen throughout the offseason that made you think that you needed to change up whatever it was about his game?
That's a good point.
That, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the old adage, like if it's not broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, let him
Yeah.
do what he does best, and he'll find a way to win you that football game. I mean, as harsh as everything's been in this earlier part of the year, there's still a lot of football left to be played, a lot of room left to have a very positive season. I jokingly say 10-2. Um, I if I'm being quite honest, I think that the Big 12 championship is something that's just not attainable for WVU this year with the defense that we have. Um, but there's still a lot of a good that could be had from this season.
Yeah, you definitely would have to see some vast improvements on that defensive side of the ball for that to become, anywhere near reality, I think. But hey, you never know. Crazier things have happened. We'll see what happens, and we're gonna cheer for it the whole way at least, and let the chips fall where they may, as they say. So we'll see what happens with it. But starting off 1-0, all good things right now to this point. And speaking of good things, there may be no better thing than we can tell you about, of course, than Magic Mind, something that we're always trying to let you know about here on the Country Roads Webcast. And, driving up to the game yesterday, driving back, it's a long drive here from Mercer County, about 3.5 hours or so. You would think that I'd probably be a little bit tired, coming home from that. But really, with the Magic Mind in tow, taking it daily, continuing to reap the benefits of it, it had me, alert, ready. I even came home after the game. Once I got home from that drive, did some dishes in the kitchen because, Magic Mind will help you in that way. It'll just keep you going no matter what you got to do each day. It'll help you attack any tasks that you have there. And also, of course, it's great not only for your caffeine intake. You can still have your coffee. It doesn't replace your coffee. You can have it with it, and it just helps those benefits last you throughout the day, which is one thing that I've noticed since I've been taking it, and I'm sure that it can help you out as well. And it's also, good for you with its all natural ingredients that have been tested by doctors. We can't recommend it enough here at the Country Roads Webcast, especially when you add in the fact that you can get the discount from us here using our special code CountryLT20 at checkout, where you'll get 48% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. Just head to magicmind.com/countrylt and use the code CountryLT20 at checkout to try your mental performance shot. And can't recommend it enough, guys. Get you some Magic Mind. Your mind will thank you for it. Having said that, Steven, talked a little bit about our thoughts from the game. We're going to get into some numbers, and then we'll take a look around the Big 12. But any other thing you want to touch on here before we take a look at some stats from the game?
And I just want to say once again, shout out to the fan base, shout out to all the guys on the offense and defense that were able to pull out the W when it was probably really easy to give up, not only before the game but probably during the game with another weather delay. A lot of the fans left, including myself. I'll have to throw myself under the bus here. I did leave, but it was mainly just to get to get back in town in time so that my papa wasn't getting in bed late.
No,
So
I get that. I get that
did listen to
100%.
the last game by Tony, last part of the game by Tony, but that was enjoyable. I haven't
Yeah.
got to do that in a long time.
Well, it takes me back to another game me and you were at together where we sometimes we get a little bit superstitious, and me and you were in the concourse at one point watching on the TVs out there, and we started coming back. So we was like, well, we got to stay here and watch it because if we move back into the stadium, our luck's right here. So to me that just means changing up your setting, getting into the car, listening on the radio, change the fortune of the team. There you go. That's what did it, man. So thank you for the win, Steven.
Hey, you're welcome, man. I'm doing my part. I'm just doing what I
That's
can.
right.
I,
That's right. You got to go where the lucky is, man, and that worked
I
out
don't
for
want to
us.
brag. I don't want to brag. I just, I don't want to pat myself too much on the back, but I do
But
what I can.
that's got to be a record. I don't think I ever remember two rain delays in one season for WVU, and both noon kickoffs have had that 2 hour rain delay. So it's crazy.
No, but I tell you what, that's the first time there's been two in one season, I believe. But there has been, I mean, I want to say upwards since when was that, 2012 when we played Marshall, and that was a rain delay.
Yeah,
That one, that's the most popular one that everybody talks about. But
that's the
I'd
first
say
one I remember
since
being at.
then, I want to say there's been like upwards of like 6 or 7 of them. I mean, there's been a lot of rain delays because of lightning. And driving back, that was some of the worst lightning that I've ever seen, like in person. It was
He was
wild.
coming down. He
Some
was coming
heavy rain.
down.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody made it safe driving back.
Yeah, hope so. Hope so indeed. And like you said, it's been a ton lately. 3 in the last 2 years now. So I mean, yeah, definitely more so than I can ever remember. But hopefully that's the last one we have to deal with this year. I think it would be unprecedented to have a third one. Fingers crossed we don't. But hey, at least this time, that worked out better for us too. The first rain delay didn't go in our favor after that. This time it did. So, we're learning. We're learning from our mistakes. Lose a game in the last 5 minutes, win a game in the last 5 minutes, lose a game after a rain delay, win a game after a rain delay. So, hey, this team's, they're evolving. They're continuing to grow, right? That's what we can
Yeah.
say, I guess.
That's all you can ask for is growth, right? I
That's
agree.
right. That's right. Hopefully they continue to improve and continue their winning ways that they've now got back on, the winning track here and done it at the important time. Conference play very important this year in 2024, and West Virginia is 1-0 in the Big 12. So, having said that, let's take a look at some stats from the game here, Steven. We'll talk a little bit about these numbers, and then we'll name our players of the game on each side of the ball, and then we'll take a look at the rest of the conference's action from Week 4. But West Virginia comes out with a 32-28 victory over Kansas to move to 2-2 overall, 1-0 in Big 12. Kansas falls to 0-1 in the conference, 1-3 overall. First downs, Kansas actually had 25 to West Virginia's 23. Third down efficiency, very similar. Kansas was 6 of 13, West Virginia 7 of 13. Both teams 100% on fourth down, actually. Kansas 2 of 2, West Virginia 1 of 1. West Virginia with the slight edge in total yardage, 444 to Kansas's 432. They do a better job, as far as numbers are concerned in pass defense. We'd given up, back-to-back 300-yard passers. Drew Aller had 200 plus. They do hold Jalen Daniels under 200 yards passing, 184 yards for Kansas. West Virginia with nearly 300 of their own, though, with 295. And then we go down here to the rushing numbers. This is where Kansas had a distinct advantage in the game. Actually, we mentioned West Virginia struggling to run the ball a little bit in this game, especially with their running backs. Hopefully that's something that doesn't become a trend moving forward. But Kansas runs for 248, West Virginia with 149. Penalties, 5 for 42 yards for Kansas. West Virginia had 3 for 20 yards. The turnover battle, I said this would be a big thing going into the game. Probably a key would be to try and win this. West Virginia didn't win it, but they didn't lose it. 2-2 comes out even there. And, the important thing there was West Virginia finally, forces some turnovers. You talked about the big strip fumble to in the game. And then, of course, had the interception earlier in the game as well, their first interception of the season. So that was big. And then time of possession, Kansas wins that battle 36 minutes to 23 for West Virginia. Stephen, when we look at these team stats, what really stands out to you here?
Really, two things. One, uh, great job by the defense to finally, they were the last team in the Big 12 to not have an interception. They finally get that taken care of. So good job on them for doing that. Then another thing, it is quite amazing what 1 week of a difference and a different set of referees will do for you in the penalty department.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's obvious how 3 penalties for 20 yards is all WVU got after what was had. And I'm not trying to harp on spilt milk or anything, but I'm just saying, like, when are we going to you know as the NCAA as an organization, when are they going to look at that, or when is the Big 12 conference or whoever it may be that is in charge of that kind of shit? I'm sorry for lack of a better way to
No,
put
it
that.
is what
I
it
mean,
is.
man, oh man, that's uh, simultaneously satisfying that West Virginia, did that well in that department of things, or that area of things in the penalty department, but also very frustrating
Yeah.
because yeah,
Well, I mean, you look last week, I think, this week, I thought the game was pretty well officiated on both sides, and you see only 8 total penalties. And that's, more along the lines of what you should see. You go back last week, I think it was close to 20 penalties that those
yeah,
referees threw last week, which is just, it was ridiculous. I mean, it seemed like after every play, there was a flag being thrown. So, this week,
and a
much
lot of
better
them were
job by the
questionable.
officials.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Much better officiated game this time. The game had a lot better flow to it. Just felt better all around, and not just because West Virginia won, but just in general, much more entertaining game to watch when it wasn't being stopped every, 5 seconds for a penalty. So I agree with you there on that one. But there's the team stats there for the Mountaineers and the Jayhawks there in this one. Let's take a look at the individual numbers here, especially for West Virginia here on this side. We mentioned Garrett Green, his great performance, his clutch performance to, wind up getting West Virginia the win. He goes 15 to 30 for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, does throw 2 interceptions, but at least one of those he was being hit as he threw. He had Traylon Ray on what probably could have been a touchdown, at least another deep ball, but he got hit as he threw. So that was the second one. Not so much his fault, but nonetheless, he does get the 2 interceptions. Rushing wise, as we mentioned, Garrett Green, the leading rusher for the Mountaineers on the day, 17 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown. C.J. Donaldson, 6 carries, 38 yards. Jaheim White, 6 carries, 15 yards, and a touchdown. Rodney Gallagher, 2 carries for 12 yards. The receiving department, like we said, Hudson Clement with his breakout performance of 2024 thus far. Hopefully, it's just a sign of things to come for him. 7 catches, 150 yards. Traylon Ray got loose on a couple of deep balls, 2 catches for 70 yards. Rodney Gallagher, probably should have mentioned him earlier, but let it slip my mind. A lot to talk about with this game. 2 catches, 41 yards, and of course, the 1 touchdown, the game winning touchdown on his first career touchdown as a Mountaineer. Big stuff there from Rodney. Thought he stood out in this game offensively. 2 catches, 18 yards, and a touchdown for Cole Taylor. 2 catches for 16 yards for Jaheim White there. So looking at the offensive numbers there, Steven, who would you name as your player of the game on the offensive side for the Mountaineers this week?
For player of the game, I think you obviously got to go with Garrett Green. I mean, you can make a runner up, and you probably will go. I won't take it away from you. I won't even mention the name because I know who you're going to go with. But I think Garrett Green has, for me, you have to go with him. But also, I do want to give a shout out to Cole Taylor. Also, I thought for most of the day, I was wondering to myself, why haven't we seen a lot of Cole Taylor?
Yeah.
Why hasn't he been thrown into the mix? And then after the weather delay, they come out and they hit him, obviously for the touchdown. But before that, he made a pretty big grab to set them up for the touchdown in the red zone. So also to Cole Taylor, like I said, I'm not going to mention the guy that you're going to take. So I'll let you go
Yeah.
ahead and give your play of the game.
Yeah. Deserves that shout out. Also, the big grab on the 2 point conversion that made it a 3 point game there late on the nicely designed play. Looked like it just ended around Traylon Ray, and then
Yeah, I
he
forgot
throws
about
it
that
to
too.
Taylor. Yeah, that was a big
Yeah,
play. But yeah, my player of the game on offense, like I said, had to give a shout out to Rodney Gallagher because he did have the game winning touchdown. But you got to go Huddy Tuddy, man. Got to go Huddy Tuddy. 7 catches, 150 yards,
oh, you
and to
didn't go
me,
the guy I thought I should have mentioned. RG3,
he,
man, I'll give you the shout out.
yeah,
You deserve some love for the game winning touchdown, even though
for
we're not
sure.
giving you a play of the game. But
For
that's
sure.
just you.
I thought about it. It was between Hudson or Rodney for me for sure.
Yeah,
Those were the two I was thinking of once you went with Garrett. But I got to give it to Huddy just because it seemed like he was getting open all day long. And those Kansas corners, they're very good. Like we talked about in the preview show, high grades, and he was matched up with Mello Dotson, who had been the highest grade. And for lack of a better term, he really stole Mello Dotson's lunch money all game. He was just kept getting open on him, couldn't cover him. And like I said, hopefully that's just a sign of things to come. And Hudson Clement's going to continue to have big games like this because it's been a while since we've seen a receiver in this offense have a game, 7 catches, 150 yards. And so I'm hoping that's just continues for Hudson Clement, and he just continues to have a big 2024. And I think he definitely could have established himself as wide receiver one in this game. So I'll give him my player of the game on the offensive side. Let's look at the defensive stats here, and then we will give our player of the game on that side as well. Josiah Trotter, 11 tackles, 6 of them solo. And I believe, like I said, he was out for a series or two at least there after he went down. He had like 6 tackles in the first quarter, I think, before that injury. So who knows how many tackles he could have racked up if he didn't go out for those few series. Still a great game. I thought him and Trey Lathan loomed large in this one when the West Virginia was, making the tackles on the running backs. It was usually him or Lathan. Lathan, 10 tackles of his own in a TFL. Tyron Bradley, 7 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 1 interception. Heck of a game from the spur there, Tyron Bradley. Anthony Wilson with 7 tackles. TJ Jackson, as we mentioned, continues to be a standout in this defense. 6 tackles, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for a loss. Sean Martin with a half of a tackle for a loss there as well that he shared with TJ Jackson. And then you get Asani Redwood with the TFL in this game also. And I thought that, not popping up too much on the stat sheet, but I thought, Jacoby Spells getting the start. I thought he performed well. So did TJ Crandall. Hated to see TJ Crandall go down because I liked what he was putting out there at the defensive back position. So probably see some more of those guys moving forward there, Steven. But looking at the defensive numbers there, who is your player of the game on the defensive side?
Defensively, I'm still going to go with Josiah Trotter. I thought that speaking of resilience, uh, the whole team that was the theme of the week for the whole team, but specifically so I think so for Josiah Trotter. He went down with the injury, looked kind of scary from my perspective. From what I've heard, it also looks scary on TV. He was out there, I think, just 2 or 3 series later. Um, and was still making plays. So Josiah Trotter is, um, you know, has shown up every single week for WVU this
Yes.
season. So uh, for an accumulative reason, there's a few guys you can give it to this week, but I think I'm going to still go with Josiah.
Yeah, Josiah, man, he's just a stud. He really is. Definitely
Absolutely.
can't disagree
Yeah.
with you there for picking that one. But hey, I've got to give it to him. Tyron Bradley, man, he deserves it after
Mm-hmm.
that game that he had there. Like I said, the sack, the interception early, West Virginia's first interception of the season. He drops into coverage and grabs one. And funny enough, he has West Virginia's last 2 interceptions going back to the bowl game last year in the Mayo Bowl when he grabbed the one-handed pick. So, Tyron Bradley not only doing a good job, run defense, pressuring the passer. But hey, when he drops back into pass coverage, doing pretty good there as well. And then, of course, maybe the even bigger play, the strip sack late in the game of Jalen Daniels. Fights through actually a hold on that play, still manages to get in the backfield there, not only get the sack, but knock the ball out of, from Jalen Daniels, and then goes the extra step further than that and recovers it himself as well. So I think hell of a game from Tyron Bradley. Got to give him my defensive player of the game after that performance.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that's a bad pick at all. Especially with again, how down people have been on specifically this defense. Uh, for them to make a play like that and seal the deal, I thought that was a great way to end the day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it was fitting. We've been, begging for the defense to, make some changes, to make some improvements, to make some stops when we really needed it, and that's how the game ends with the defense, making that critical stop and doing it by forcing a turnover, which is something that we've been clamoring for is for more turnovers from this defense, and that's how they seal the victory is by forcing a turnover. So very fitting, and West Virginia comes away with the victory. Couldn't be happier about it to start Big 12 play 1-0, go into the bye week 1-0, and the vibes just a little bit better now heading into that bye week because if we weren't able to pull off that comeback, it would have been a long couple of weeks there sitting at 1-3, and like you said earlier, 2-2, much better, and 1-0 in conference play definitely a lot better as well. So there's a look at the numbers there. Stephen, any final thoughts on the 32-28 win over Kansas before we take a look around at the other scores from the conference this past week?
Yeah, like I said, 10-2, going undefeated here on out. It's time to climb. Neil Brown's the most elite coach in all of college football. We're the best team to ever play the game. Those 2 games that we lost this season are flukes. You guys just buckle up, or let's just get ready for this.
That's right. That's right. Like the picture I sent you of the meme that I saw going around. Get in, loser. We're trusting the
We're
climb again.
trusting the climb again. Yeah.
We're trusting the climb again. Hey, that's right.
Hey,
Hey, it's
that's
all good
why
vibes when you win.
that's in all seriousness, that's why people get upset. We get it. We're a passionate fan base. They get upset, and it's always fire the head coach. It's always bench the quarterback. It's always the most extreme that you can get. And hey, that at the end of the season, however things end up, that might be the case. But that's you know, give them time. Give them time to actually live out the scenarios instead of just already assuming how everything's going to play out and firing someone or you know punishing someone based upon you know stuff that hasn't even happened yet. So
Yeah, you never know. They may surprise you. I mean, They surprised us. We both,
It surprised that,
were
like I said,
wrong on our prediction this week, and glad to be wrong about it. So you never know. Hopefully,
yeah,
they keep
yeah,
surprising us even more.
absolutely. And we even said that. We both picked them to lose this game. Probably going to I'm picking them to lose every game this season because they seem to play better whenever I do. So,
Hey, that's right. Whatever works, man. Got to be
so
a
they
little
prove me wrong
superstitious with
every
it.
week.
Yeah,
No
we'll come
doubt.
on here on these review shows and eat crow if it means we're winning games. That's fine with me.
Hell yeah, To me, it's not eating crow. To me, I'm doing my part. That's
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 right. That's right. We're gonna keep it
if
going.
me picking
Got
them
to
to
keep it
lose makes
rolling.
them win. That's what I'll do every single week.
Damn straight, man. Damn straight.
Yeah,
I don't blame you there for that one. Like I said, we've been known to be a little superstitious, so whatever gets the job done. And hey, the Mountaineers got the job done. So 1-0 in Big 12 play, and let's hope they keep it rolling. But speaking of the Big 12, let's take a look at the rest of the conference, the scores around the Big 12 here. Review some of those here in week 4. Interesting week, some unexpected outcomes, some more expected, but I think the unexpected and surprising ones were super surprising. So let's talk about some of these games. Stephen, will lead off here with the team that you mentioned briefly earlier. Cincinnati looks like they're going to definitely be, improved versus what they were last year. We both picked them to win, but I was not expecting the shutout there. They beat Houston 34-0 at home there. They pitched the shutout, so big win there for the Bearcats to start off conference play.
yeah. The Cincinnati's a little bit better of a football team than we thought, but I also think that Houston's a little bit worse of a football than we also thought too. That's
True.
kind of rough what's happening down there.
Yeah, true. Both things may be true there for sure. As we mentioned, the Mountaineers 32-28 over Kansas. Iowa State continues their winning ways, 52-7 over Arkansas State there in Ames. And I think that this, Iowa State, one thing that they've hung their hat on a lot is defense. John Haycock always does a good job with their defense, and that remains true. But I think that this year's version of Iowa State looks really strong offensively. They may have the best 1-2 punch at receiver there with Noel, and I think it's Higgins is the other receiver there, and of course Rocco Beck throwing the ball. This Iowa State team looks to be a competitor in the conference.
To be honest with you, I think Iowa State is very much what we thought West Virginia was going to be. Um, I I think Iowa State's very much a dark horse to win the conference this year with the way they've played early on.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. In the top 25 and showing no signs of stopping thus far. Hopefully, West Virginia, plays them well when they come into Morgantown here in a few weeks. But be looking forward to that one when it comes around. Because also going to get that Anthony Becht Hall of Fame induction,
Yeah,
which we got the awesome Hall of Fame ceremonies this weekend. Honored a lot of guys. Anthony Beck will be in town for that one, so definitely want to take a second out and shout that out. The fun Hall of Fame inductions, the fun honoring of the Elite Eight basketball team of John Beelines as well. That was a good feature
great
of
to see him back
West
in town.
Virginia's
Yeah,
game. Yeah,
and
see all those guys.
he even went to with him having being back in town. I think he went and spoke to the the current basketball team. So
That's
that was
awesome.
really really awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
If
love
I'm
having
not
him back
mistaken,
around.
I think John doesn't Beeline live around Morgantown.
I think so. I think he's back around this way, I believe.
I think he moved back to Morgantown after everything in Cleveland. So that's awesome. I love that he came back. He's always been true to heart to home here. Even when he left and went to Michigan, I don't think there was any malice on either side of that. So yeah, I always love having him back in town, and it was a great reception for him whenever they announced him.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Got a really good pop from the crowd when they brought that team out. Got to see all those guys again. So yeah, really cool. Glad they had a chance to do that and honor them as a really cool moment of the game for sure. Moving on here with the Big 12, Texas Tech. Close game there. Arizona State. Has been a
Mm.
surprise early on, and they battle Texas Tech in Lubbock. Their Texas Tech plays a lot better in Lubbock under Joey McGuire, a lot better at home, and they managed to sneak out the win there, 30-22 over Arizona State. And then we have what was our game of the week this week in our picks. Unfortunately, didn't go the way that we were predicting it would go and kind of hoping that it would go. Oklahoma State does mount a comeback there at the end. Utah had dominated most of this game. It was 22-3 there up until about the midpoint of the fourth quarter, which kind of goes hand in hand with what you were talking about, Stephen, with some of those comebacks. Oklahoma State nearly mounts one, but surprisingly, Utah gets the win in Stillwater and does it without Cam Rising, playing Zach Wilson's brother there, Isaac Wilson at quarterback. Utah's defense was really the standout to me in this game. Thought their defense performed really well. The run game was nice, and Utah does enough to get the win in Stillwater, 22-19, to start their Big 12 journey 1-0 here in their new conference.
Yeah, and interesting dynamic there. I did not realize that Zach Wilson's brother was the quarterback for Utah, or backup quarterback anyway. If I'm not mistaken, didn't that Zach Wilson played for BYU, didn't he?
Yeah, that's weird, isn't
So
it? They went to rival
that's an
schools.
interesting rivalry dynamic in the Holy Wars. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. But
That's,
also quite disappointed in Oklahoma State for not holding up their end of the bargain. Picked them to win not only win this game, to go undefeated in the conference this year. Really disappointed with them.
Yeah, I think that Oklahoma State's really what's surprising about them. I mean, they had the QB controversy in this game where they benched Alan Bowman and brought in Garrett Rangel and then ended up
Yeah,
bringing Bowman back in late. But what's really surprising, I think, about Oklahoma State and kind of holding them back is for some reason their run game is just not getting going, which obviously, people are going to key on Ollie Gordon. I think he hasn't hit 50 yards rushing in 3 consecutive games now, but it's just very surprising because they have their entire offensive line back. They had a lot of returning starters, one of the highest amount in the nation, including all 5 of their starters returning on the offensive line. So it's really peculiar that they haven't been able to get that run game going. But if
yeah,
they don't get it corrected, it's going to be a struggle for them moving forward. But hopefully they'll be able to get that thing in gear, and Oklahoma State will bounce back. Like we always like to say, you can't ever count out Mike Gundy. So I'd say they'll get it. They'll right that ship.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. I have faith in Mike Gundy. Like I said, I don't know if benching Alan Bowman was the smartest decision, but in current age of college football, it's not uncommon to see that type of scenario play out.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see what they do at quarterback moving forward. If they're going to go with Rangel, if they're going to stick with Bowman, be interesting to see how it plays out there. Because seems like at least right now, passing the ball is going to be how they're going to have to score it and move points. So we'll see what happens there with Oklahoma State. They've got another one coming up this week, another conference game that'll be a tough one with Kansas State. But moving on, talking a little bit about some of the surprising results here, because I think we can probably say that about all 3 of these final games that we're going to talk about, starting with SMU and
For some people,
TCU. The rivalry game there. SMU 66 points over TCU. TCU, puts up 42 in a shootout there, but SMU really controlled this game from the onset there. TCU's coach Sonny Dykes gets ejected from the game even. Art Briles' son Kendall Briles had to take over and coach, the second half there for TCU, but SMU really dominates this rivalry game with 66 points over TCU. So just kind of strange to me how much TCU has kind of fallen since Sonny Dykes' first season there. Last year they have the rough year. This year seems like might be rough yet again at this point. Who knows if they'll be able to get it turned around? But definitely, to go from playing for a national championship a couple of years ago to, now with a rough start again this season, getting dominated by their rival there at SMU. It's just interesting dynamic there for the Horned Frogs, I think.
yeah. Strange how that's all playing out. I don't know if we got to look more into that. I don't know if their program's been a victim to the transfer portal woes of getting maybe some of their players poached by some of the bigger programs. But it'd be interesting to see if that be
Yeah,
kind of
maybe.
a factor that plays into that. Because
That's a good point.
they had a very elite team, not just 2 seasons ago. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really, really interesting to see what happens with them moving forward and see if they'll be able to get things right and win some games within the conference moving forward. But one of TCU's rivals, the Baylor Bears, also played against a new Big 12 team there in Colorado, taking on the Buffaloes, and looked like Baylor was in control of this game for the first 2-3 quarters. Even they were up 24-10 at one point, but then Colorado comes storming back and really probably the most exhilarating finish of the week. We thought we had a great finish in Morgantown, and we did, obviously coming from behind and scoring with less than 30 seconds to go. But Colorado hits a Hail Mary right there as time expires to send the game into overtime. And then in overtime, they score first. And then Travis Hunter does what Travis Hunter does and makes, special plays forces a fumble on the goal line. It looked like Baylor was going to tie it up and force a second OT, and instead Colorado gets a big win. They start Big 12 play 1-0. Not a lot of people expected that, or at least I certainly didn't expect that. Them to take down Baylor in that manner. They come from
Yeah.
behind, they hit a Hail Mary, and they win it in overtime, 38-31 over the Bears.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Even I know you've been a lot more down on them than I have, but even I in recent weeks have been pretty down on the Colorado Buffaloes, so I didn't expect that at all. Um, with with how they've handled certain situations, I kind of do hope for for them to lose moving forward as well. But
Yeah, they've
good
got a tough
game.
schedule coming up. You'll probably get that wish, I'd say. But then
Yeah,
again, I've been wrong on them a couple times, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, heck of a game.
yeah, no doubt. Definitely an exciting
Yeah,
game.
yeah, for sure. That one was fun to watch. Got home
And
in time, catch the tail end of it. So that was fun
I
to
was going
see.
to say, and what a catch on the on the final play to
Oh
send it
man,
to overtime. I mean, my gosh, I was sitting there watching. I was like, "There's no way he catches it," and he caught it. I was like, "Oh man!" And just the play before that,
I was about to
um,
say they could have had it before that play.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the play before that, it was a very close one as well. So yeah, definitely exhilarating to just watch that game.
Yeah, and that's the only bad thing I think when you look at it from Baylor's perspective is, Dave Aranda, we've talked about him kind of being on the hot seat. And, coming into this year, he took over the defensive play calling as well. And the fact that they lose that game on a Hail Mary, or at least, get to overtime on a Hail Mary when it looked like they had it won, it's going to fall on that defensive side, which, probably turns the temperature up on Dave Aranda's seat a little bit more. Because as you said, not only really do you give up one Hail Mary, you almost give up two because, like you said, they could have had the play before. So definitely seems like Dave Aranda's seat's a little bit hot right now after allowing Colorado to come from behind and get that win. But hey, at least it was a fun game to watch if you're a Big 12 fan. And speaking of if you're a Big 12 fan, the most shocking result of Week 4, I
Who's
think,
who's
is
shocked?
well, shocking for everyone except maybe Steven because listen, I gotta give Steven his props on this one. There's probably no one outside of the BYU fan base that's been as high on BYU as Steven here has. And man, you really have called it with them because they come out this season. They've had some impressive wins, especially you see SMU put up 66 on TCU just a couple of weeks ago. BYU held them to only 15 points. So the BYU defense seems to really be standing out early in this season, but I certainly didn't think that they would hold Kansas State's offense to only 9 points and really dominate this game basically from start to finish there in Provo, which we know probably going to be a tough place to play, but don't look now, but the BYU team may be a contender this year. We thought they'd be improved. They may be much improved. 38-9 over the Kansas State Wildcats, Stephen. And I know you were excited to see that one.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I was very happy to see that. And I joke, but I I thought that it might have a potential to be a really close game, and BYU had potential to win this game, but in no way did I expect them to come out and dominate in the fashion that they did from start to finish and hold Avery Johnson um, to what they did. Um, but it was fun to watch. It was absolutely fun to watch, and I hope that they keep doing this moving forward because it's a good brand of football to watch. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, indeed. I agree with that for sure. And I think, this week right here where we finally got, kind of the conference play rolling with a lot of interconference matchups here, definitely showed us one thing, and that's that this conference is wide open and a lot of these teams are going to end up beating up on each other. So,
Yep.
West Virginia, as we mentioned, it's not out of the realm of possibility if they can, find ways to win each week. They're going to have a chance at this thing potentially because, a lot of
Yep.
these games are going to be one score games. A lot of these teams appear to be evenly matched. So why not West Virginia, right, guys? Keep those hopes high.
I think the team that I think that has looked the best out of all of the teams in the conference so far didn't even play this week, and that's UCF. I have
They have
been
looked good.
I have been thoroughly impressed on both sides of the football with UCF for the entirety of this season so far. So that's if I'm picking a conference winner right now. I know I picked Oklahoma State in the preseason, but based off what we've seen so far, I think UCF might be that team.
Yeah, they're up there for me. And like we talked about, Iowa State's been impressive as well. But as bad as I hate to say it,
Mm,
man, I think that
them too,
I
but
think I underrated Utah, man. That defense looks extremely stout. The run game looked good, especially winning without their starting quarterback there. Utah is going to be a contender. I was kind of hoping that they would because, as we talked about, their fans, coming in all high and mighty, but the team's backing it up right now. We'll see if that continues throughout the rest of Big 12 play, but I was impressed with what they did in that game against Oklahoma State. So there's been some standouts, but seems like, it's wide open for anyone. So we'll see what happens moving forward, and we'll continue to cover it here on the CRW with our previews each week and our reviews each week of the Big 12 action as well, in addition to the Mountaineers. But we've talked a good bit about the Mountaineers and the exhilarating come from behind win 32-28 over Kansas. We took a look at the numbers and, of course, just talked about the Big 12 action there as well. Having said that, Stephen, any final thoughts you got before we get ready to wrap up episode 197 here?
No, just want to say, ready to get into a bye week. I think, the team definitely needs it for not only for the injury issues, but just, I think the team just needs a break,
Yeah.
mentally, for a week or so. So, if you're gonna have any shot at that game going into Oklahoma State, I believe they probably got a bye week also going into this week.
Actually, they play Kansas State, so we may have a little
Okay,
situational
okay,
advantage there because they just played Utah, then they play Kansas State, and then they got to play us. So,
okay. Well,
that maybe
hopefully,
that'll help us.
hopefully they beat Kansas State and they don't have to come off of a loss and have that pissing them off going into the game with us. So hopefully that, like you said, it's hopefully advantageous for West Virginia going into that game. So
Yeah, could
proud of
be.
West Virginia for getting the win on Saturday though and pulling that out.
Agreed. Must win game, and they found a way to win it. So can't be more happier than that. Getting that win when you really needed it, and like you said, the bye week coming at the perfect time, I think, for West Virginia. So shout out to that. Going to have that this coming week, and even though it's a bye week, we're going to still try and release an episode later this week. We'll talk about some of the earlier season stats. Talk about some of the standouts on the team, kind of the pros and cons of what we've seen thus far in 2024. And then we'll still look ahead at the Big 12 in week 5 and make our picks for the games that are happening within the conference. So be on the lookout for that coming later this week. But before we wrap up episode 197, just got to thank you guys as always for tuning in to this episode, whether you watched it on YouTube. If you did tune in that way, just, do us a quick favor, hit that little like button, give us a thumbs up. Helps a ton with the algorithm. And we also appreciate you listening to the audio version. You can find on any podcast platform you like, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it. You can listen to us there. And if you are listening to us there, just leave us a rating if you would. That really helps us a lot there. Rate us on Apple Podcasts, preferably 5 stars, but hey, give us what you feel we deserve. And of course, shout out and thank you to WVSportsNow.com for always hosting our episodes as well. But having said that, we'll get ready to put a bow on episode 197 here. West Virginia comes out victorious, starts Big 12 play 1-0, and they're sitting at 2-2 heading into the bye week, and we look forward to some more Mountaineer football in 2024. Should be a fun rest of the season here. 8 games left, and we hope West Virginia comes out on top in a lot more of them, just like they did in this matchup with the Jayhawks. West Virginia gets it done, and with that, we're done here talking about it with our Kansas review and reaction. Looking forward to the rest of the season and getting to cover it with you guys. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz for my co-host Steven. Until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those